One of the issues that we have with people is how do we help them have control? How do we help them have a voice? And how do we help them tell us what their choices are? And there are a couple of tools that we found are very helpful. One is a communication chart, and that communication chart is remarkably helpful when people don't communicate with words or where their behavior is clearer than words. The second is decision-making profiles and agreements. So when you need to know what is the best way to help somebody with decisions, what's the best approach, and who should make those decisions, you have a way to record that and a way for other people to know it. A communication chart's a way to capture what people are telling us with their behavior. It's a way to capture what they're telling us with their behavior and a way to also inform others what to do when the person is communicating with their behavior. When they've said something with their behavior, what should we do in response? We have this myth that operates where people who don't communicate with words will hear this remarkably bizarre thing that says, well, John just doesn't communicate. Well, the only people who aren't communicating are dead. Everyone who's alive is communicating. We may or may not understand their communication. We may be challenged to understand what they're telling us, but they are communicating. The challenge for us is to make sure that we are recording it and that other people then learn it. And in almost every instance that we've been in, we have found that if you've worked with somebody and you like the person, you have that personal connection, and if you worked with them for a number of months, you've learned how they communicate. And the sad thing is, when you leave and staff turn over, that knowledge leaves with you. And we need to record it, we need to capture it, and we need it in a simple table. In the communication chart, when you look at it, you can see that the middle part says, what is the behavior? What is the person doing? And the third column is, what does that behavior mean? What is the person saying with their behavior, and what does that behavior mean? And there are many people who do use words, but for whom behavior is clearer. And there are many people where their words say one thing and their behavior says another. And this is human. This is not disability, it's human. But when you have a disability and when you've lost control over significant aspects of your life, it becomes critical not only to know what the behavior communicates, but what we should do in response. So that last column is a description of what we should do in response to the behavior. Now, what should we do when we see this? And the first column is, are there circumstances that we need to know about in order to understand the behavior? This became really clear to me when I was doing a plan with a 5-year-old who had this condition called shaken baby syndrome. She had been shaken by her dad really hard when she was 2, and she had brain damage. And when I met her and she was 5, the primary way she would communicate is she would begin to yell. And if she was eating and she began to yell, it could mean one of 3 things. It might mean that she wanted something different to eat. It might mean she was bored. Or it might mean, I'm full. I'm done eating. But you needed to know the circumstance, eating. And then the behavior begins to yell, could mean one of those 3 things, and so you would write them down in the order in which you wanted people to respond. So the first thing is, try something different, because she's looking, and she needs help with eating, so you're going to be putting the food into her mouth. So she might be saying, done with the peas, try the squash. It might also mean that she's bored, and she's 5, so entertaining her while she eats is just fine. After you've tried those two, and if she's still yelling, and especially if she turns her face aside, it means she's full. Stop. But it means different things in different circumstances. If you're reading a book to her and she begins to yell, then what it means is, I want a different book. Usually the book that you're remarkably tired of reading, she wants to hear again. And you see this with a 5-year-old, but we've also seen this with 95-year-olds. People who are communicating with behavior.